So for example, download here. Go to my downloads folder. I'll go to my to-do resource, unzip it. And here is my to-do class. So go to my REST client. So I'll do that. I'll simply copy over. I'll paste it over. There's one change you need to do if you are using a tool. By default, it's using Java EE8 annotation, so just change any reference to Java X to Jakarta. Or you can just delete this and generate. So ungenerate is simply annotation to identify what tool create this class. So that is done. So that's the first step. Define the Java class that describes the data that's being returned by the API response. Okay, so that's going to be the first step. Okay, so we can skip the steps not needed. We already have this HTTP request file created in our REST API project. I'm going to update documentation for that. Okay, so now we can look at how to use microprofile REST client. Okay. I'll post another link here. Okay, so now we can look at some documentation on microprofile REST client introduction. So here's an example on how to use it. So to use microprofile REST client, it's very simple. You just create a Java interface, give it a name, followed by the base path. Okay. So every time you invoke a method, what is the starting path? Okay. If it's relative to the, if it's in the same project, then you put slash followed by path. If it's the external REST API, then you have to pass in the server location, such as HTTP :localhost port 8090/REST API. Okay. So now all you do in here is define methods. Give it a method name, the respective return type, and use JAX-RS annotation to identify which HTTP method is associated with this method call. Okay, so in this method call get all movie is executed, it's going to be done using HTTP GET request. Okay. Now we want to, if you want to get a specific set create data, you send a post request. Okay. So we'll use this reference documentation. Okay, so here we just need to create a Java interface. We give it a name. Okay. To identify this is a microphone REST client. We use the annotation at register REST client. Okay. So you must add an annotation at register REST client. Then the base URI. Specifically using at path, each method is going to invoke an endpoint starting at this location. Okay. If you need to access a subpath, you can use at path. So when you have at path, it adds it to the base URI. So in here we have a method that returns a response. This method is going to be executed using a post request. To find all items, you also need to send in a GET request. To find a single item, we have to send in a GET request and add the path with the ID of the object we want to fetch. If you want to update, you send in a put request. We have to include the path of the ID you want to update. To delete, same thing. You'll send in a delete request and specify the path of the ID to delete. This base URI, in this example, I'm hard coding the base URI. Okay. In a production environment, you should never be doing this one because in the production environment, your server is not going to be running on localhost. So that's why if you look at the Java doc comments here, if we see a class of Java doc comment, read the comment for more information on what the class does. Okay, so here shows you, okay, you should be defining the base URL in micro profile config properties file instead. Okay. In your micro profile config properties file, you can specify the package of your interface, followed by your Java interface name, followed by the suffix /mp-rest /URL. So this has to be this value, followed by the location. Okay. So if you do that, then you can comment out this base URI. So the method names in here, you can call what you like. Okay, so these names are up for you to define. I'm not going to provide you a file template for your assignment. So here reference this example here on how to define it. Okay. You have the flexibility of calling the method name whatever you like. Doesn't have to be what's shown here. So copy this over. So I'm going to create a package called REST client. I'll paste the code over. Okay, so next you're going to get a syntax error. It's missing this to-do item REST API response mapper. Okay. So what next is what is a response mapper? Response mappers are needed if you want to handle exceptions. If you want to handle exceptions when a method is invoked, you will need to register we specify which exception you're handling. So microprofile is great if everything works. What happens if the endpoint throws exceptions then? Okay, so how can we handle that? To handle that, you register a provider. Here's an example. A provider is simply any Java class that implements response exception mapper for web application exception. Then here you'll need to override two methods, two verbal and handles. Okay. So handle, you specify which status code you want to handle. Okay. So in our case, we're only interested in handling an add request. So if a method returns the status add request, we'll handle that exception. Okay. So if it's a 400, then it's going to execute this method. Okay. So this is what we're going to handle. When we send in okay, for example, if I do not pass in valid data, notice our REST API returns JSON object with a collection of name value pairs. It tells us which property has an error in it, what's the error message. Okay, so this block of code will read the body of the message coming back. Then it's going to create a map all the messages. So if we look in here, here is a Java object that could contain many properties. So in Java, the current structure is known as a map. So here is a name, colon, value. So we're going to have multiple of them. So copy the over, and I'll paste it. For one project. Okay, so now the error disappears. Okay, so next, for best practices, I'll follow the documentation here, and I'll move this location. So hard coding here, I'll create our directory beta inf. Okay. Then I'll create our microprofile config properties file. Here we create our file here, microprofile config property. Our package is dmic. Our class is actually you can if we use the I'll grab the code right here. Okay, so our port number is 8090 instead. It's running on REST API in the path. You can also copy from here. Copy this value here. Now we can comment this up. For best practices, avoid hard coding the base URI with the registered REST client. Code maintainability a lot easier. So if you want to test it using a different server, it's not easy to. Okay, so this is probably not a good name in here. I shouldn't have called it to-do item response mapper. I should have been more. This is actually a generic mapper. We should have called this a bad request API response mapper. But let's rename it to a better name. I'll refactor this. I'll refactor this. This bad request I'll rename it as bad request response mapper. A more useful name. So let's continue on. Okay, so next you can build web pages to perform code operations. So next part is same process as what you did in your assignment 1 and 2. Okay. So you can create a new file using the DMIT model server interface to define list of business operations you perform. Let's say, for example, we want to create a to-do item, get to-do item, get all of that. So copy this. Okay, so next part is the same process you use in assignment 1 and 2. You'll create your service package. Okay. So now the only difference is now you're going to implement this service interface using micro-profile REST client. Okay, so we're going to implement it using micro-profile REST client. Okay. There's no file template provided for you for this one. This one is simple. All you do is create a Java class that implements this interface. Okay. So let's create a Java class. So in fact, I'll show you how to do that. Copy the name here. I'll do this from scratch. Okay. So you can just create a Java class, give it a name. Okay. Now, to implement methods interface, we use the keyword implements followed by the interface method name. So yeah, that's good. Okay, so paste it here. Okay, so next you're gonna get here. So when you implement an interface, you need to code all the methods in the interface you're implementing. Okay. You can use the IDE to add the missing methods. When you hover the mouse cursor on top of the class declaration, it's going to show you an error say you must implement the methods and your to-do DTO service. Okay. So you can also use the keyboard shortcut Alt-Shift-Enter. So if you hover mouse, click on implement methods, it identifies a list of methods you need to implement. So click on OK. So that's how easy it is to generate method signature. Now we can just add annotations in here. I want to be able to access this object using context dependency injection. So we'll use @name to give it a name instance for this one. We only need to create a single DTO service object in memory, so we use application scope. So now, how do we create an instance of a microprofile interface? Okay, so interface is, you can't use the interface directly, you have to create implementation, right? To create implementation of your interface, you need two annotations: add inject and add best client. Okay? So when you say add inject and a best client, then at runtime it's automatically going to build the object at runtime. So copy this one over. So next, how do we code create to do item method? So most of the time it's simply a one-liner, except the create one. Okay, so when you call the create method, okay, when you create the method, it returns a response. So here is where you want to use the status code. Okay, so if the server does not return created, then something's wrong, we'll throw a runtime exception. Otherwise, we can extract the location. Okay. The location contains the ID of the resource. So we can, so I'll show you an example. Let's go to our post request, or post valid one. So notice when you send in a post request, it returns this location header. So we're going to get this location value, and I'm just interested in this primary key. So the new resource ID is 5. Okay. So here, okay. So we'll get the location header. That's this part. It's going to return this value. Okay. I know. Okay, the primary key is located after the last /. Okay. So here we'll get the index location of the last /. We'll add 1 if we want this extract the number after the slash. We'll convert the string to a log. We'll set our ID of our model. So copy this over. So the rest is just one liner. So getting items, or you just access your oops. All right, my model, the data type is incorrect. The ID has to be a long, not integer. So fix that. Okay, so the rest is just simply calling methods. Okay, so here our REST client is called MP REST client. So there's an access method set. So we have a method that returns a single one. That's find by ID, we're done. Do we have a method that returns all items? And now with MP client, yes we do, it's called find all. Do you have a method that can update? Yes we do. So MP REST client dot update, we'll pass in the ID. The ID we grab it from our to-do item DTO, get the ID, and we'll pass in our to-do item DTO. This is one line. Delete, same thing. MP REST client, delete. So this is a single method call. So there's no template provider. You can just code this. A simple one. Okay. So the key here is let the IDE add missing methods there. Okay, Okay, so that is done. Okay, so once that's done, you can create your faces backing beam. Same like what you did in assignment 1 and 2. You create our faces backing beam using the faces CRUD backing beam template. It's going to prompt us for our service implementation. Okay, so it's passing service implementation and add mission code. So already done that part. So create my package. So we have a question in the chat area. Okay, so just to fix issue with the Visuals ID. Okay, so there's 2 ways of doing it, right? Right now, okay, so the issue is the issue in here, we thought the ID was integer, but it's actually long. So there's a couple ways of doing it, right? Okay. So it's going to tell us, hey, okay, so this sample code assumes that the resource ID is a long. Okay, so you have 2 choices. You can go here and change this to a long along with the getter and setters, or if you don't need to use a long, you can use integer. You can also come here and change this to integer. Okay, integer.parse. Okay, so it's simply a so you say value of. Yeah, so 2 ways of doing it. So either change the model class ID from an integer to a long, or change the sample code so the resource ID is integer. Okay, but then if you do that, everything else is depending on long, so it's not easier to go back here. I'll change this back. I'll go back here. I'll change this back to a long. Okay, so let's continue on. And so we create a package called faces. Okay, so I've already done this part and customized it, so I'm not going to spend time typing here. So that is done. Okay, so next is creating the CRUD page. Okay. So next is creating the CRUD page. Same technique as your assignment 1 and 2. You can reuse this file template, MIT 2015 Faces CRUD page. Okay. just delete this list. Okay, the directory is up to you. So up to you where you want to put this. So here I'll just create a directory called web. Okay, so let's create a directory called to do. I'll create a file called CRUD. That's HTML. Since the code I already have, I'm not going to use the file template. Manually change. Okay, so that's done. Okay, so next is going to give you an error. Hey, I can't find this directory. Okay. Hey, your web in, you don't have a directory called basis template. Notice here, IntelliJ can create the directory for you. Hey, do you want me to create this directory? Yes. Okay. So it creates the directory. So let's say you don't have this file. We don't want IntelliJ to create this file, but otherwise there's no code in there. Okay, so we're going to use the file template. Okay, so it's a DMIT 2015 basis template. And we just need to add a menu link. Okay, so we can add another FP colon menu item. The value is to do. And the URL location of it is using the current request. You'll extract the context path required. You'll add the path to do, and the file is crud.xhtml. You'll close this. So web XML, we're missing a welcome file list, so I'll add it in here. So we just need to create an index file, then we can test it out. So here I don't have an index file, so web app, let's create a DMIT 2015 basis completion page, index. The page is called DMIT 2015 REST client. Home. Okay, when using a file template, it's important you delete any code you don't need, especially the to-do. If I see to-do comments, you can mark it off. Okay, so all this stuff to do, if you don't need to use it, delete it. Otherwise, I'm stuck deducting marks off. Okay, so excellent. Now we're ready to test it. We have an index page. So we don't have to type the absolute path for CRUD. Okay. Start a Wildfly plugin dev mode. Okay, so RESTfy is running on port 8080. REST API is 8090. Okay, so we test it out. Okay, we type in localhost 8080. We have a to-do menu item. We click on it. So we are successfully fetching our data. We can verify by going to our REST API project and manually adding some test data. Okay, so for example, I'm going to send in another post request. And so it creates a new one. I go here. Yes, so it's actually reading from our REST API. So if I try to create a new item, generate status like carpenter done. You can verify by going to our REST API and sending a GET request, fetch all items. Yeah, it's called carpenter, so that works. Okay. I can delete all my start. I can check my HTTP request on server side, or you check the database. Okay, so we send another GET request. Okay. The item is being deleted. You can also test update. So carpenter, say, do assignment 6, trace 3, complete, no. I'll save it. Okay. You can send GET request again on server side. It's updated. Okay. Okay, so last thing I want to show you today is how to view the contents of an H2 database using the H2 console. So I'm going to go back to this document here. When we're building, okay, so when we're building the REST API, one step we skipped was creating a web XML file where we included the H2 Jakarta Web Servlet, where we created a path, defined a URL pattern for H2-console that will execute the servlet. This servlet is actually a Java program that provides a UI you can use to check the contents of an H2 database. Okay, so I want to create this file. So create a directory called web app. I'll create a subdirectory in web app for web inf. I'll add my web XML file. I'll grab the code from here. Okay, so this is an REST API project. All we're doing is each time a REST API project goes up, we'll start this Jakarta Web Servlet. Okay, servlet is accessible using this path, H2 console. So let's go back to my browser. I'll type in localhost 48090/H2 console. Make sure my server is reloading. I'll just need to restart this. Restart the plugin.